Hello and welcome, heroes, to the Crit Academy. I am your host, Justin.
I'm your co-host, Ian.
And I'm your co-host, Camden.
This podcast was created to provide you, our heroes, with new and reusable material for both players and DMs.
We hope to inspire you with creative content that you can bring with you on your next adventure.
Our show may not be suitable for young children, but neither is our D&D games.
This episode is brought to you by our generous Patreon donors. If you do not know, Patreon is a membership platform for creators to build relationships with their most loyal fans, known as patrons. It is a tier-based reward system that allows you to support your favorite creators for as little as $1 a month. In exchange, you are offered exclusive content based on the tier you select. We have several different tiers with many different rewards. I figured out it's very long-winded to try to name them all, so some of the top ones are playing in a game with us, watching our show live, as well as getting access to our back catalog of the videos we have done.
We actually have those.
And a Discord channel, so those are some of the big ones. The other thing is once a month, one of our co-hosts, Brandon, he actually does artwork commissions for one random patron every single month, which is awesome and exciting. His art is fantastic. You can check out on our Facebook page, and he actually does commissions for only $20. So,
Yep.
So check it out. We want to thank you for joining us today here at Crit Academy Studios, where everything's made up and your roles don't matter.
That's right. It's like a spore druid without any mushrooms.
We got a really great show for you guys today. We like to start off every show on a high note by giving away fat loots.
What's it made this time?
From our sponsors. Our first one is compliments of Goblinstone.
Each episode, we will draw one lucky subscriber's name, and they will win the 5-star rated adventure, Banquet of the Damned, Compliments of Goblinstone. Goblinstone is a community project for D&D fans based out of the UK. They aim to be a place where you can team up with professionals to turn your ideas into high-quality products and give every fan a chance to get published. Be sure to head over to www.goblinstone.com, or you can check out our fellowship link on our website, www.critacademy.com.
Camden, who's our winner?
Our winner today of our gift courtesy of Goblin Stone is P. Shields.
When it comes crashing down and it hurts inside, you gotta take a stand, it don't help.
Congratulations, P. Shields. If you enjoy the adventure, please head on over to Goblinstone. Let them know what you like, what you didn't like. Help them improve their product moving forward. Tell them Crit Academy sent you. We got a really great show for you today. We have a question submitted by Michael B. We will be discussing the Circle of Spores, Unearthed Arcana, and Druid archetype. And, of course, we have our Unearthed Tips and Tricks, where we bring new and reusable material for both players and DMs. But before all that, we have In the Realms, where we talk a little bit about what's going on in our lives. Camden, what's going on in your realm?
Recently, I took my lovely girlfriend up to the Detroit area and then the Port Huron area to hang out with my parents who were up there.
Wow.
That sounds
Visiting
fun.
family. It was a good time. What else? Yeah, that was my main event this time. I custom ordered my first mini, and I'm gonna try to find it.
Oh, snap.
Was it from Hero Forge?
It was from Hero Forge.
Nice. Dude got a big book.
Yeah, he's got a big book, but he's a little kid. He's a half-elf kid, and I'm actually using him to play test a full Necromancer class homebrew that I found.
Does he use that book as an improvised weapon? Because that's like half his size.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Yeah, he very well might.
Oh, man. I am totally, next time I roll a wizard, I ain't using a staff. I'm using my book to beat the shit out of people.
But yeah, that campaign starts tomorrow, so pretty excited about that.
You know, that actually reminds me of the webcam like Melly Men doing Melly Things for like the intern to Pokemon trainer. And his sole Pokemon is a Gyarados. But you find out that it evolved into a Gyarados because during Pokemon Combat, back when it was a Magikarp, he would just take his Magikarp and beat the Pokemon with it as a club.
That's funny. So yeah, that sounds awesome. Meeting the parents for the girlfriend's got to be exciting.
Yeah, it was good.
Are your parents
seemed to
cool?
like her, so.
Okay.
With that, Justin, what's up in your realm?
Thank you for asking, Camden. I actually had a really great weekend this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
I had a bunch of people over for my 33rd level. I'm getting older now, and I had to do something nice about it. So I had invited a bunch of people over into the man cave. We played some board games. Everyone brought their towers. We hooked him up. Gabe actually from Interparty Conflict drove all the way up here to hang out with us, so that was pretty cool.
Yep.
We really had a blast. I think I posted a picture for our patrons on the behind the scenes tier and up, and it was really, really fun. A lot of yelling, a lot of screaming. We all played hardcore Path of Exile, where you die and that's pretty much it. And it didn't go well.
No.
Within a couple hours, everyone was dead.
I died first.
I left
traps.
you. Yeah, you got killed by some spikes coming out of the ground, right?
I didn't dodge them in time.
So we really had a lot of fun. It was really enjoyable. But more importantly is I have friends.
Friends?
So it was pretty fantastic. And then actually, just before I got onto the show, one of my buddies was talking to a coworker at his work, and they somehow D&D came up. Now, he doesn't play D&D, but he asked her, how long she's been playing and if she listens to any shows. And turns out she listens to us.
Wow.
So that was exciting. So a shout out to Sabrina.
Small world.
I know. Or maybe we're becoming superstars.
I'm going to go small world.
Yeah, I would agree. So that's super exciting. Ian, what's going on in your realm?
Well, I was at your party, as I obviously strongly implied there a moment ago. And I actually had my summer work party this same day. And my erratic sleep schedule continues at work due to my ever-changing shift schedule that can end anytime. And I actually stupidly got into the rare argument over Facebook. Even after I was like, why did I do that?
Been there. Did you win?
It's a Facebook argument. Does anyone ever win?
No. But I still try.
Well, and basically what the post was is like a guy posted like the picture of Goku from Dragon Ball Z Super Resurrection F being shot down by a laser.
What?
And the comment was, after this, I do not want to hear any stupid argument about how Superman can't beat Goku.
Oh, God.
But then a guy below that was like, well, but Superman lost to Alfred. And
That's a kryptonite.
I'm like, okay, first off, that Alfred was powered up by a Kryptonian pill that gave him Superman powers, which he basically used to sucker punch Superman and knock him out. Unlike Superman, Alfred's ex-special forces. And even then, that was not the Earth 1 Superman, so people aren't going to count it. But then guys are like, well, that's a stupid argument. You can't say just because it's a different version of Superman that Alfred didn't beat Superman. I'm like, dude, the Superman from different worlds have different power levels with different fates.
So I'm going to guess that Ian lost the argument because he had to explain it all to us.
And
some very good points you make there.
like the Kingdom Come Superman, for example, is immune to kryptonite.
Okay.
And don't get me started on Superboy Prime, but I'll just leave it at that.
Thank you.
But you get the idea.
I do. That there's an argument for everything.
And some people are stupid.
Sure, let's go with
And
that.
we don't, and that's coming from me.
Okay. I guess that'll do it for In the Realm. If they'd like to visit other realms, how can they do that, Camden?
Why, they can visit our website, critacademy.com, and click on our Audible banner where you sign up. You get a 30-day free trial, and you get to pick any book you want for free on us.
Pretty awesome. Moving on to our next segment, we have our Let's Talk About Blank segment where we answer your questions. Our question today comes from Michael B. I feel D&D needs a threat mechanic for tank warriors. Right now, there is nothing stopping a baddie from bypassing high HP, high AC warriors, and going straight for the wizard. Thoughts?
There's this thing called opportunity attacks and the map.
Okay. Camden, what do you think?
And there's also the Sentinel feat, too, if you're really desperate.
Isn't there a mechanic for it already?
There is an optional mechanic in the DMG called marking if you wanted to use it.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking of.
What fighters used to do back in 4th edition.
Right. So there are some built-in mechanics to deal with this, but overall, a threat mechanic is a stupid idea.
And the other thing, too,
It's
is...
not a video game.
Well, that and the other thing, too, is like, that tells me that your casters and range guys are way too close to the front line.
Right. Well, not only that. Think about it from a villain perspective. If a guy in full plate and a shield and a mace walks towards me, and there's a guy shooting little arrows standing behind him, the odds that I'm going to inflict damage to the guy wearing the high IC or the high armor is significantly lower. So from a strategy standpoint, why the hell wouldn't I go for the guy wearing a t-shirt or the guy wearing, leather? from a tactical standpoint, that makes sense. As soon as you force them to not do that as part of a quote-unquote threat mechanic, then you're taking away the ability of the NPC to decide what is best in that situation. And that, to me, is not correct. Now, there are certain classes that have those sort of things built into them, like the Paladin. The Paladin can do Compel Duel. That is a threat ability.
The Vengeance one. Not Vengeance. Is it Vengeance?
Well, it's one of the spells they have access
Yeah.
to, but the Vengeance one has several mechanics that are like that.
Right.
So, if you really want, quote-unquote, a threat mechanic, play one of the classes that has it.
And the Fighter as well has like the ability to, if you take like the, I forget what it's called off the top of my head 'cause I'm freaking tired, but the shield ability can, if they're adjacent to an ally and an enemy attacks that ally, they can grant disadvantage to that attack.
Yes, and that's the protection fighting style, right?
That one.
The goal isn't to force the enemy to attack them, it's to punish them for choosing not to attack you. And saying you need a threat mechanic for that is in my opinion, is silly.
And once
Yeah,
again, opportunity attacks.
Yes.
Like Ian said with the shield and stuff like that, it also doesn't have to be one-dimensional. That's just the offensive mechanic, like Justin said, punishing the target for choosing not to attack the tankier character. It doesn't have to be just that. You can also think about it in, the more traditional supporty sense, where you can just like you can take feats that make you the offensive, tiger mom of the group. You can also take the feats and the stuff to be the supporty character.
Yeah, I agree. And that kind of comes back to his other point is, well, the enemy can just bypass the AC warriors. Well, yeah, he's probably going to. Kenny in the comments points out that if a mage fireballs and kills a bunch of guys, that person becomes a high risk, because what's to stop him from doing it again? And that becomes a priority for an intelligent creature. Now, if you have some sort of additional mechanic that you've created to force them to focus on that, you're stripping away what makes an intelligent enemy interesting to fight.
And the other thing, too, is depending on what the environment's like, you can actually bottleneck your enemies into a narrow area where they can't get past you.
You mean using strategy and plan?
Or a map.
Those are the things that, Michael B., those are the things that you need to be doing if you want to, quote-unquote, have a threat mechanic. Get clever, get creative. Don't rely on a silly ability to keep the enemy focused on you. Come up with reasons why they should focus on you. There's plenty of abilities already in the game that do that.
It's just, are you using or are you picking them?
Yeah, and I would assume that he may not be either not aware of them or is just not interested in them because they don't boost his damage.
This is not the first time I've heard this discussion. It doesn't give wizards and spellcasters enough credit. It makes them sound like little toothpick people that are just waiting to be snapped.
Right?
It's
they
not
have
like,
resources to deal with that.
Yeah, they're
They
not
can
begging
use it.
for a one-hit kill. They can take a couple hits, but it's not like one hit and they're gone.
I've been stabbed once. That was the last time I didn't take shield, and I'll never not take shield again.
Or if a paladin crits them with the smite.
Right.
Like you're certainly far more vulnerable than most of the rest of your party, essentially, probably. But it's not so severe of a difference that it requires another mechanic all its own.
Yeah. Sam says it's the high AC warrior's job to keep the attention of the enemy. I agree 100%. If you really wanted to keep the enemy in your grasp, you would grapple him so he doesn't go after anybody. Or take your sling and choke a bitch, something along those lines. There's things you can do as the player that are outside even the scope of your current abilities to control that person to stop them from attacking somebody.
I got a pole arm.
I got a big stick. You beat him with a big stick with a sharp metal piece on the end. There are a few features that help address this. You don't need a new mechanic added to the game. Get creative. Stop being a little punk.
God, way to hand it to our listener who's reaching out for some sage guidance.
Do I look like sage advice to you?
He trusted us to
funny.
teach him, and you're.
I think that tells us how sleep deprived we are.
Yeah. So I think that'll do it for our Let's Talk About Blank segment. If you would like us to answer your questions, or you want me to insult your question, because apparently that's what I do now, Ian, how can they do that? Camden, if they would like to submit a question to our Let's Talk About Blank segment, how can they do that?
Email us at critacademy at gmail.com or message us on Facebook or Twitter at Critacademy. It's as simple as that.
It really is. Moving on to our main topic, we have the Unearthed Arcana, the Circle of the Spores Druid. Druids of the Circle of Spores find beauty in decay. They see within the mold and other fungi the ability to transform lifeless material into abundant, albeit somewhat strange, life. These druids believe that life and death are portions of a grand cycle, like the circle of life. That's what that kind of reminds me of. With one leading to the other and then back again. Death is not the end of life, but instead a change of state that sees life shift into new forms. It kind of reminds me of Avatar. You guys see that movie, Avatar? Is that kind of what they talk about?
Yeah, it's like, yeah, hippie circle of life shit.
Druids of this circle have a complex relationship with the undead. Unlike most other druids, they see nothing inherently wrong with undeath, which they consider to be the companion to life and death. However, these druids believe that the natural cycle is healthiest when each segment of it is vibrant and changing. Undead that seek to replace all life with undeath or avoid passing to a final rest violate this cycle and must be thwarted. How's that sound to you guys? Is that cool?
I like it. I like it a lot. I love, because like the token taboo thing in D&D is necromancy.
Mm-hmm.
And I like the idea of a good kind of peacekeeper character that also dabbles in necromancy stuff.
Yeah, I agree.
So I'm excited to discuss this more.
Well, but also keep in mind too, whether necromancy is considered evil depends on which society you go to as well. And the creators did say no, necromancy is not inherently evil in itself.
Right, but oftentimes
It's associated with it, sure.
Yeah, oftentimes due to the personalities of those types of people that like to dabble into it, they often are kind of sketchy people to begin with. But you're right, they're not inherently bad. And I think we've talked about that on the show before. I think in one example we talked that a necromancer or a group of people who their entire city is defended by undead, and it's considered an honor to die and then your body be brought back to life to serve and defend your family so they don't have to.
Or be used as a labor force.
Or as a labor force. That's a good one. I don't know if we talked about it as that. We may have.
I think we did.
But
that same segment.
But that kind of ties into this class a little bit, along with the traditional necromancer, that there are good uses for that sort of stuff.
And the way I see it, necromancers are the ultimate recyclers. Reduce, reuse, reanimate.
Sam says, it also feels like necromancy easily gets out of control and goes too far, but this feels far more in control. I would agree.
Hey man, necromancers just generate the family.
It's easier when their graves are right next to each other, though.
Oh yeah.
Oh man, it's like everyone's heard those jokes. They're not funny.
The first ability they get at level 2 is Halo of Spores. You can launch toxic spores at other creatures. To do so, you can use your reaction to deal 3 poison damage to one creature you can see within 10 feet. And this damage increases as you level up.
What do you think about that, Camden?
I like it. It's a cool cantrip. And the druid doesn't get too much reaction abilities as is. So it's nice for them to have this in the back pocket,
Now, this says that you have to use your reaction on your turn as well. So you do lose the ability to like attack on off turns, but that doesn't happen all that often in 5e at least. In general anyway. So, but this basically grants you an extra form of damage at second level. So not only are you beating people to death with your magical shillelagh weapon, but you can also use a reaction to induce this toxic spores. Now, you could really get creative with how you use this. Now, I assume kind of, like holding out your hand and some little like spores from plants kind of float into your enemy. But what if you kind of as flavor just constantly talk about this like twister of spores that constantly surround your character? I think that would be really cool.
I can't believe my brain just went there. The example I thought in my head is there's a web series in Hulu called The Awesomes, which is a dysfunctional superhero team. And the villain in one episode is a master thief named Whiskey Dick. and his superpower is he was Irish. He basically had so much alcohol in his body that people became drunk just being near him.
Sarah says there's actually a fungus that does this to ants. That's
yeah,
interesting.
that's actually true. That served as the inspiration for the game The Last of Us.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's cool. So yeah, I really like this ability. It really gives another use of, it gives a good use to your reaction. But once again, once you use it, you can't use it for other things. But it only has a 10-foot reach too. So maybe if you like to kind of keep your distance, then you're gonna be kind of in trouble at a 10 feet distance there.
Also, at second level, you gain the symbiotic entity ability. You gain the ability to channel magic into the spores that infuse you. When using your wild shape, you can awaken those spores rather than transforming. When you do so, you gain 3 temporary hit points per level you have in the Druid class. The damage for your Halo of Spores doubles, and your melee weapon attacks deal an extra d6 poison damage to any target you hit. This benefit lasts for 10 minutes or until you use your wild shape again.
Okay, so this is interesting.
That's kind of cool.
So you basically buff yourself. You're granting damage absorption, and you're increasing your damage output. Now, if you notice, it says your melee attacks
Yeah.
deal an extra 1d6. So if you do multiple attacks,
Which you don't really do as a druid.
but there's certain feats that allow that. First one that came to mind when I was going through this was the Polemaster feat.
True.
If your spores has a 10-foot reach and you use the pole arm, you can keep that 10-foot reach. Not only do the extra 1d6 for the initial strike, but using your bonus action, you can then do your offhanded strike and do another 1d6 there, plus using your reaction to push out the double damage for the Halo of Spores. That's a lot of damage at second level.
That adds up.
Is that just me, or does that seem like a lot of damage?
It's a lot of damage.
That's an intense amount of damage.
How do you guys envision this working? Do you have any ideas that stand out?
I kind of pictured like a spore version of the Venom symbiote.
Yeah, something like that's actually what I was thinking. Like, except instead of being like the symbiote, your body like transforms like a Power Ranger, and this mold like seeps out of like your body. Like the new Power Rangers, have you seen that?
No.
Where when they're first transforming, it looks like it's forming out of like their skin. It's very cool.
We don't talk about that movie.
I like the new movie. I thought it was fantastic. You didn't like it?
No.
Man, whatever. You just lost like all your cool points, bro. I think they nailed it.
My one word rebuttal. They screwed him.
I feel like this could also be flavored like your body is already kind of weird and mushroomy. Not necessarily like you have mushrooms growing on you, but your skin kind of takes on a weird kind of porous texture.
Mm-hmm.
And when you use this, you create like almost a layer of dead flesh on the outside of you that can function as your temporary HP. And you can reflavor it as when you get hit, like a chunk of you is taken out of your body and regenerates immediately.
Oh, that's interesting. Kind of representative of like the temporary HP there.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
That's pretty cool. I like that. I think those are both really good examples. The only thing I couldn't really pin on is how does it increasing your damage? You know, I would think
The
like
spores become more toxic.
maybe they start to surround your weapon, and so when you make an attack, the spores like make their way into the enemy's wounds.
Yep.
That's cool. So of course with the special with the new class, you get access to special spells.
All right, and the first batch you get is at level 3, and you gain Gentle Repose, which protects your target from decay. It's kind of flavor for it. But it kind of keeps your allies from decomposing when they die, so you can take longer to resurrect them. That's useful.
Yeah, and it kind of in order to push more of the flavoring of it, it doesn't really give you a whole lot of description about how it looks. So I kind of envision like when you cast the spell, little mushrooms kind of start popping up or latching on to the corpse, and as stuff starts to decay, it eats the decaying, bacteria that causes that, and kind of makes your spell stand out for your unique
Or could create
archetype.
Or could just cover them in mushrooms and an airtight seal.
Oh, you have to like come like boop, 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 they pop up all over the whole thing.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. I like that.
And also, at third level, you gain Ray of Enfeeblement. Target does half damage with strength-based attacks. And some way that could be flavored is like a moss or some sort of like a mushroom to start growing on them, slowing down their movement, eating away at their muscle tissue. Yeah.
Yeah, I actually think that's a really good one, because Ray of Enfeeblement, all it does is weaken like strength-based attacks, and by
But that's all of them.
yeah, but having like this flesh-eating like moss or fungi growing on somebody can create an amazing visual, at least in my opinion. What do you think, Camden?
I like that image. I think it's really cool. You could also instead of just the moss growing on their body, I envisioned it kind of maybe coming up from the ground and having kind of a grappled flavor, but not necessarily. You obviously, it's not a grapple mechanic, but having like a grapple flavor of stuff growing up from the ground and slowing them down.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's the one thing is you can always describe stuff as if it would be a grapple feature, but not really mechanically. It just you're given the story. Actually, Sam's got a good one talking about gentle repose. He says the lacerations and the damage, the mushrooms kind of start to regenerate the wounds as they kind of appear, and I think that's pretty cool. Yeah, so those are two new spells you get as a druid, which really fit that kind of flavor. At 5th level, you get 2 new features. You get Animate the Dead and Gaseous Form. Now, Animate the Dead, guess what that does? Generates a walking corpse for you. It's essentially one of the core necromancer abilities.
So, the Last of Us zombies.
Yes.
The
So,
clickers.
so once again, to really give this the druid unique flavor, we like to do, actually I'm working on a monster variant for this, and I wish I would have got it done for this one, but kind of like a botanical zombie where instead of it just being like a traditional zombie, living vines and moss crawl up in and around this thing and actually are what are moving the corpse, not the corpse itself coming to life. And I think that would be an awesome flavor. Could you imagine describing a lumbering skeleton with all these, vine tentacles kind of flailing about it and, mushrooms, growing all over it. And you can see it all kind of like a shambling mound. You can see all of its innards kind of flailing about as it's moving this corpse along.
I like that. I like kind of a blight flavor.
Yes. What about you? You like that?
Yeah. Oh, I'm just picturing mushrooms sticking out from his eye sockets.
Oh, that's awesome. And then having like little tiny, critters or something kind of moving. Maybe the spores moving to make it look like the eyes are looking at you.
Yeah.
Awesome. And then, of course, gaseous form turns you into like a silvery wisp. Well, that doesn't really fit the flavor of the druid. So instead of turning into, a gaseous form, I see spores or plant seeds, like the stupid white dandelions that appear everywhere, like a big collection of them, as they're floating around, people swatting at them and shit. You know what I mean?
That'd be pretty cool.
I almost feel like that would be less obvious than a floating ball of gas. You know what I mean? But I definitely think that you could really give that little druid spore touch with just a little bit of reflavoring.
You got the touch.
So at 6th level, you get an ability called Fungal Infestation.
Oh, sorry. That sounds like an STD.
You're not wrong.
Sorry.
Should have an interesting discussion about this one then. 6th level, your spores gain the ability to infest a humanoid corpse and animate it. If you slay a humanoid with your halo of spores damage, the creature rises as a zombie at the end of your turn. It has 1 hit point, and in combat, its turn is immediately after yours. It obeys your mental commands, and the only action it can take is the attack action, with 1 melee attack. It remains animated for 1 hour, after which time it collapses and dies for good.
I would also think that implies that you can also move, too.
Yeah.
Guys, move's not an action.
Yeah. I hope that would be implied.
Yeah.
I really think this is a really cool ability because now it's giving you a reason to time those halo of spores at the right moment.
Mm-hmm.
I would almost be a douche and ready my action and put out a little bit less damage just to ensure that I got the final kick so I can have a botanical ally to absorb damage and protect me.
Go, mini swamp thing.
I mean, think about that. As your reaction, you have when you deal damage as a reaction, you have a chance to resurrect a zombie, or a skeleton, or botanical beast.
Yeah.
Once again, coming back to that, the vines and the spores kind of taking over and filling out. I really like the idea of having spores that like glow. Like out of we talked about Avatar earlier. They got all those little plants and stuff that glow. How awesome would that be to have a walking zombie that has like every time somebody strikes it, like parts of it like glow and shit. Though this thing would die in one shot compared to the animate dead one. But
Yeah,
Totally think the clickers from Last of Us.
oh yeah,
I was gonna say in I was talking earlier about my mini that I had made for my guy. That necromancer homebrew has a bunch of mechanics in place to like govern how many zombies you can control and how much HP they can have and their CR and stuff. This ability could get super OP. The kicker is that 1 HP.
Yeah.
yeah.
I like this a lot.
Yeah.
This is really cool.
Kenny asks if it's a zombie from the monster manual or the character stat block. Since it specifically says you raise a zombie, I'm gonna assume it's the zombie from the monster stat block with the change of their HP as 1. That's the way I assume that it's talking.
Right.
Isn't the zombie from the stat block the same one from the Master Manual?
The character stat block? What character stat? What do you mean?
You said stat block, so I assume
Yeah.
you meant the stat block that's in the back of the player's handbook.
Oh yeah, I think that's what he's talking about. It should be the same thing.
Yeah.
I don't think they're different.
Nope.
You could. I guess I've never really confirmed that. I just guess I assume they're the same.
That's the other restriction that I think helps
Oh,
balance this out is that it has to be a humanoid.
yeah.
So you can't kill a dragon with your.
But I
Halo
want my wolf
Spores,
zombie.
Raise a Draco zombie.
So that's a pretty cool feature, and you're right. There are several things that do limit it: the 1 HP and the fact that it has to be a humanoid. So
Yeah.
at 7th level, you get access to 2 new spells. You get Blight, which basically just does damage by like absorbing moisture from the enemy. So it's just a flat, pretty much a flat damage ability. And I could see you reflavoring this once again, having like the spores, start kind of, I don't know, throbbing as it sucks like the moisture right out of the skin and starts to wither stuff. I think that just sounds awesome and would be so much fun. It would be worse is like after you kill it, you scoop up the spores and squeeze them and rinse them and get the collection into your water canteen.
Have you not read Dune?
I have not read Dune. I ain't got time for that. I heard that shit's long as hell.
But it's a good book.
Yeah, it's like 10 books in one, isn't it? It's super huge.
It's 500 pages.
Oh, that's not bad. I always heard it was really, really big. I think it's not that bad.
No.
I think the Oathbringer I was just listening to is bigger now.
But to say,
Anyways, you also get access to confusion. So I would reflavor this to a you exhale some sort of collection of spores that kind of when they breathe them in, they kind of create a kind of euphoria for the enemy involved.
all the colors.
Like, have you seen
Drugs.
Yes, basically it's a drug, right? It
Literal
gets them
shrooms.
Yeah, there you go. Can you imagine run up and just stuffing a shroom right in their mouth and punching them in the jaw until they chew it? Choke on it, bitch! Take it down! Take it! Swallow it! All of it! Kind of like when I was a kid, mom having to stuff the medicine in my mouth. So that's really cool. Once again, not just these spells, but anytime you play a character and you've got a specific feel you're going for, we've said it many, many times, try to find a way where you can change the flavor of the spell to match what your character's going for. I know last time we had Jom on, he talked about how he used, prestidigitate, was it thaumaturgy, and since his character was like a grave digger, he had, dark, like, dirty hands come out and put out, candles and stuff like that. So,
Yep. But on the flip side too, though, like I'm all up for reflavoring as long as it makes sense, but don't dictate something. You need to reflavor to this kind of thing either.
no, you don't have to. It's always an option, but I feel like,
That may have came up once or twice, not in your game.
well, I know nothing comes up in my game because nobody wants to tell me that I'm doing it wrong. I just assume it's because I'm not doing it wrong. But hey, whatever. But yes, nobody should ever dictate to the player how something is flavored,
Like
as long as it isn't out of range of what makes sense. Come on, be reasonable, people.
Like I remember, for example, I had like a forged domain cleric. He's like a Toll of Dead, and the description for it is a bell sounds, and when you cast the spell, you know that there's no bell there, and he was like, that doesn't make any sense.
But magic doesn't make sense.
I'm like, fine. I hit my hammer onto my shield, makes a ringing noise.
Yeah, you shouldn't have to do that. Magic just is magic.
I agree, but you get the point.
Yeah, I would have told that guy to sit down and rotate on my middle finger.
Here's the DM. Ninth level spells. When you gain this, Cloud Kill. And I think what it does is pretty obvious by the name, but, well, we can, once again, continue with the flavoring we have here of being a Spore Druid, where spores.
Lots and lots of
Spores
spores.
everywhere.
Is it just me? I almost want to do like creeping mold or something as well, you know? Can you imagine like mold that just moves so slow, they're like, yeah, it's never going to get there, and you just kick it as the druid so it lands on them?
This is like watching paint dry. And you also gain Contagion. Or we can infect people with, well, disease. But we can flavor it as like a rush of flower spores flow into every orifice of the enemy, and the mold begins to form on their body. Almost like they're bleeding as it forms.
Ooh. Camden, what do you think about these two spells?
I think you hit the nail on the head. I think these are perfect for exactly the intended function of a character that would take this subclass for the Druid. I think that there are lots of different ways to reflavor this. The other thing I've been thinking about as we're discussing this is the where you would want this Druid to come from. Is this a Druid that would have grown up in like a swampy area, or would this been more of a rainforest Druid who dealt with lots of very exotic plants and stuff?
Or the woods.
Or the woods, or, you know, a coniferous forest or a deciduous forest. There are lots of different ways to go with this. And if you
Those are big words.
if you're an especially nerdy, if you know a lot about plants and you want to geek out about, you know, your Druid uses specific plants for their abilities. I don't know where I'm going with that.
How
Like-
dare you bring science to my magic game?
Right. Like there are a lot of different directions you could go with reflavoring these abilities. Plant life is so diverse.
It is.
Yeah. And the other thing that I was thinking about while I was writing this out, and it doesn't have to stop at, you know, the plant spores and everything, because there's a lot of critters that like pollen, like bees and stuff, and insects eat like pollen and stuff. So you could even, like, this cloud kill could be, you know, you form a collection of, you know, succulent pollen that attracts, you know, dozens of bees or something like that. So you can actually get a little farther involved in that if you want.
Puppies!
That would be just as effective and would still make sense for the character. Tate just wrote us a book, bro.
The Druid has a staff with different mushrooms growing off it, man. He has collected it, and when he pulls it off and eats them, then the staff can spread the shroom when he touches against the ground or the person.
Or just rip the shroom off and throw it, and like crush it in your hand and throw it.
Shroom
Oh, there you go. Shroom grenade.
Yeah, shroom grenade him.
Oh, that is
Like a
awesome.
smoke bomb. Like a smoke bomb.
That's fantastic.
Sounds like pollen kills me every time.
That'd be so fucking cool.
Hell yeah, it would. I love that you brought the staff flavoring into that. Because that kind of goes on something I don't think we've touched on too much, is when you're building your character, take its build into consideration when deciding, oh, I have a staff. Okay, well, that's fantastic. Make that shit. That should be a player tip. We might already have done that. I have to find out. But making it unique to your character, having a staff that's got like mushrooms like growing out the side of the damn thing is interesting as hell. And will be memorable, you know, and it gives an opportunity for the NPCs to interact with that character concept that he wouldn't interact with others in the same way. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, because when I was saying it, I didn't understand what I was saying, so I'm glad you guys get it. Sam says throwing the shroom grenades is the source of the cloud kill spell, or even just your that halo of spores. You know, that could just be you chucking frickin' shrooms.
Sensu bean.
Oh, you know what would be awesome? This would make an awesome villain. A guy who is able to summon forth spores as a drug and is a drug dealer. A druid as a drug dealer. How awesome would that be? Not that hugs, not drugs, people.
Makes sense to me.
But I think that would be interesting. Anyway. The next feature you get access to is called Spreading Spores, as if you haven't been doing that already.
Right.
At 10th level, you gain the ability to seed an area with deadly spores. Once again, have we not been doing that? As a bonus action, you hurl a fungal spore up to 30 feet. Okay, we were just talking about this. Where they swirl around in a 10-foot cube for 1 minute.
Ooh.
Wow. While the cube of spores persists, you can't use your Halo of Spores feature, but any creature that starts its turn in the cube takes your Halo of Spores damage.
Nice.
The cube of spores vanishes early if you use this feature again.
That sounds pretty good.
So, I like this because we were just talking about the spore grenade, right? The fungal grenade. I totally can see my character doing this, throwing the spore grenade, creating this fungal spore, because you notice they take it as long as they're in the area. What if you then wild shaped into a bear and grappled two bastards and just held them, lock them down prone in this barrage of deadly spores?
Yo, a druidic Dutch oven.
Oh, no. Come here, boy. I got something good for you. The Dutch oven. Oh, my wife hates those.
You turn into a bear, you grapple them, and you're spreading spores as you just fart really bad.
That's awesome. Oh,
Taylor, left in the room
snap.
with Ian and Camden is just as dangerous.
That's funny.
What did I do?
So I really we kind of already got ahead of ourselves and started talking about this sort of thing. This is essentially another use of the fungal grenade, right, or the mushroom grenade. I don't think I'll ever not be able to get get it out of my head of a giant bear grappling two people and then just letting loose spores out of his ass. So that is by far the best way to do that. Thank you, Camden, for sharing.
Okay. Next up, we have Fungal Body. At 14th level, the fungal spores alter you. You can't be blinded, deafened, frightened, or poisoned. And if an attack crit hits you, it doesn't deal the extra damage.
This reminds me of meth. Doesn't that make people think they're invincible?
It's
Wow.
like this whole subclass is just drugs.
I know. They're like, how can we slip drugs into this game, but not make it so obvious?
That reminds me of how Nazi Germany actually gave its troops meth.
Did they do that?
They totally did that.
Oh shit! I didn't know that. That's crazy.
That's how they took France so fast. But they were like, I picture this Druid, similar to Jack's father in Pirates of the Caribbean. I get that.
Yeah, I can see that totally. I think this is another opportunity to really engage your staff in it. If you if I had the staff we've been talking about with the mushrooms and the fungus and the molds all over it, I would envision my character stomping the staff on the ground and causing the stuff to burst free and encase his body or something. Or it can be something more subtle where he chants a quick word or something, and you start to see stuff like mold and stuff creeping out of his eyes, like tears maybe, and out of his nose as if he'd been sucker punched. Kind of giving him this high that prevents him from these special conditions. Meth Nazis. Thank you, Wizards of the Coast, for the meth Nazis. I totally want to just reflavor all this to be a meth Nazi now.
And actually, I knew this beforehand, but they even brought it up in the latest season of Archer too.
Ah, man, I couldn't watch that show.
What the heck is this? It's Pervitin. It's made of methamphetamines, and I forget what it was. Oh, really? Did you bring enough for everybody? Yeah.
So do you guys...
Jeremy Crawford for Meth Nazi.
Meth Nazis.
Meth Nazis.
Thank you, everyone who's participated in this. This has been a wonderful learning experience.
We need some penicillin. Give me a moment.
Aw.
Since this has a necromancy flavor, that it would be really cool if you decide to play a character like this for your character, perhaps a story arc specific to your character, having some moral ambiguity in that one of the big bads, or at least a character you deal with, has the same abilities as you, is also a druid of the Circle of Spores, but uses their powers for bad.
Ooh, I like that. You could do that with a regular necromancer too. So in either case, that's a really awesome idea.
Evil is better
Right.
because good is dumb.
I still like the idea of the drug dealer, though.
The first one's free.
bonus encounter idea. The only other thing that I would touch on is that because this character deals with like molds and mushrooms and moss and that sort of stuff, you can easily supplement their armor with this stuff to really give it that flavor where they got this like living armor on them. If their entire equipment is just made, like they're not even wearing pants, they're just wearing like, a piece of bark and some mossy equipment, I think that would be very interesting and would create very interesting flavor in talking topics.
Cater, get it for the $5 for every complaint.
That's true. So I think that'll do it for the what the fuck is this called again? The Circle of Spores Druid from the Unearthed Arcana. I really hope this makes it into a book.
I also hope not only does this make it, but the Sharpshooter Fighter and the Phoenix Druid.
The Phoenix Sorcerer?
Phoenix Sorcerer.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so that'll do it for our main topic today. I really like that, and I'm looking forward to going through more. Before we move on to our fourth and final segment, we have our giveaway compliments of Loresmith.
Each episode, we will draw another lucky subscriber's name, and they will win the best-selling adventure, The Claws of Madness, Compliments of Loresmith. Loresmith is a small indie team of creative artists who remember exploring the realms together with friends, finding incredible places, and meeting colorful characters along the way. They set out to deliver an experience that sparks those lasting impressions that pushed them to create their first standalone adventure, The Claws of Madness. This best-selling adventure is one that you don't want to miss.
Ian, who's our winner today?
Our winner today for Loresmith is Chris Seeley, 5672.
When it comes crashing down and it hurts inside, you gotta take a stand, it don't have to.
I'm surrounded by madness.
Sam says, are the other archetypes Druid circles or something else? One is a fighter archetype, and the other one is a wizard archetype.
Yeah,
so they are different.
Yeah, because these used to come out a while ago, but it's still
Yeah,
good
they
stuff.
came out in February, I think.
Yeah.
Actually, Camden brought up bringing back into the player class analysis stuff, so I'm trying to, and actually, I've got a big surprise for that.
And actually, there's like the stuff from the Ravnica as well as the Eberron stuff that came out.
Yes, those are things I'm going to talk about that we're going to discuss. I'm excited for Eberron because that was the one my 4th edition took place in.
Yep.
So,
Warforged and Changeling suckers.
oh man, I have an awesome character concept for the Warforged, and I cannot wait to talk about it.
Is it a Warforged cleric who's a cleric at the forge?
No, I saw that post though. Anyways, congratulations, Chris Seeley 5672. If you enjoy the adventure, please head on over, let Loresmith know, leave him a review, tell him what you like, what you didn't like, and help him improve his product later. Tell him Crit Academy sent you. So moving on to our Unearthed Tips and Tricks, where we give you content for you to bring with you on your next adventure. We have our character concept, the False Prophet. This character is sort of a kind of a religious con artist. He is a false prophet that preaches in the name of some well-known, good-aligned deity, but pretty much does it for purely selfish gain, whether it be for power, influence, or just straight up, donations. This character claims to speak directly to the deity and cites false information in pretty much any situation that he can, leverage it. Any way that'll, gain him more followers or believers and help him getting what he seeks, whether, once again, it's the power, the influence, or the dough. Now, for me, I thought this worked best with like an arcane trickster, maybe with like the acolyte background, where he's using his prestidigitation to enhance these quote unquote visions to really make the commoners believe he's saying what he says. Because we know that, and well, the people know, the villagers know that gods exist. They know that there's people that worship them. They know that power comes from them. So why would they not have any reason to believe a guy that shows up saying this stuff when he can work quote unquote magic? And I think that just creates an amazing roleplay opportunity as your character is trying to build followers to whatever his quote unquote cause is that may or may not change every time he goes into a new town. What do you think about this, Camden?
I like this a lot. I think it's good to mention the Arcane Trickster for this.
Yep.
There's also an Unearthed Arcana somewhere out there for it, the Dark Paladin, like the Fallen Paladin.
Mm-hmm.
Who also, there'd be a deity involved there. And you could certainly work this character concepts for that as well.
Is that in D&D,
yeah.
actually?
I don't know. I know there's a cleric.
Baker Paladin?
There's a cleric trickery domain, which actually Kenny is mentioning.
Yeah.
And that's actually what spurred this idea on originally. Was, okay, if I'm a trickery cleric, what am I tricking people? Well, the person I'm pretending to be tied to, except for in a cleric's situation, they actually are tied to some sort of deity. So you definitely could fake that, or maybe they are tied to this deity and they're making up the shit, quote unquote, that it's telling them to do.
Right.
But then would the deity pull its power? I don't know. So that gets kind of more into those sort of thing. But that's originally why I thought the arcane trickster would make a really good example for this, because he probably doesn't have to follow a deity. But I think it's hilarious, and I would love as a player to come to every session with a false prophet. What word am I looking for?
False prophecy?
Yes, a false prophecy that I could read to all the players as I stand on top of my soapbox in the middle of town and start chanting, "Hear ye, hear ye! Helm requires Helm needs your donations. I offer his protection. He has talked to me directly," and start freaking slamming doors and shit like that with your powers.
Or make the prophecy so freaking vague that
It's always right. You will find love.
What would be cool is if this character has kind of like a problem child relationship. If you're going with the cleric route, if the character has a kind of a problem child relationship with the deity, and the cleric's relationship to the deity is not to either of their choice, and the character was like born into a highly religious family and was raised in the ways of the deity and is closely related to the deity, but like kind of does stupid shit sometimes.
It doesn't give a shit.
And doesn't give a flying fuck about it.
Hey, Marty. Marty.
That's funny.
And does these trickster things and deceives people. But sometimes the deity will actually come to this character with important messages and visions. And you could have kind of tension with the rest of the party and some NPCs with kind of a boy who cried wolf situation where
I like
sometimes
that.
People won't know when to believe this character and when not to.
Sarah makes two really great points. She says this could be some fun DM fodder as well. And she says a pissed off deity could be seeking them out.
Yeah.
Because this character's spreading false information. I like that. I've never had a deity hot on my trail. That would be awesome.
Why am I picturing right now that one episode of Rick and Morty where apparently this one like warrior alien race has like a custom where they find like the strongest warrior they know to kill them so they can enter into the afterlife. Oh man, I think it's great that you have this great afterlife without any evidence. Evidence? There's supposed to be evidence?
So I really like this character concept, and I want to run it more and more.
Oh my gosh, I'm a ghost. This is me. Oh my gosh, no, it's being drained to hell. He said there was no evidence. That was a lot of evidence.
You know what? Interesting. Sarah was talking about having a pissed off deity. What if that character finally died and the deity showed up, and instead of letting them just die, they turned them to like a ghost, like out of the monster manual,
Or a revenant.
or a revenant? Yeah, revenant seems like they get a little more too much power. I think like a low level ghost that any little.
I was actually referring to the unearthed Arcana race, not the.
Oh
monster.
no, I wouldn't let them keep playing. Fuck that. You spread false rumors, my deity swoop down and punish thee. That would be an awesome surprise for the player, I think. So, anyways, that'll do it for our character concept, the False Prophet.
This week's monster variant comes from Keenan Taylor, and he titles it the Hungry Shadow Monster. It's a CR5, and here's the flavor text he gave us. The first thing you notice is the vulture-like head, but where a beak should be instead, you see a toothy maw. A rooster-like comb rests atop its head, its ugly face framed by an ochre mane, and the dewlaps hanging from its face inflate to resemble pink entrails. Shaggy brown feathers cover most of its body. The beast's elongated tail and powerful wings are lined with barbed quills. The wings feature meat hook claws. Its long legs are each armed with a slashing claw the size of a dagger. It looks at you with cold eyes. Seems to double in size as its feathers flex. It lets out a heinous, grating hiss.
That was really good.
Not gonna lie, when I first read the title, like a hungry shadow master, I was kind of picturing it as a hippo.
Hungry hippo.
Hungry
Shadow
beast.
Hungry.
So what makes this
Shadow.
monster interesting?
It's mechanical functions. It's got multi-attack for 2 attacks, one with its bite and one with its dagger-like talons. It can use its reaction to an opponent entering their reach. The hungry shadow makes a bite attack with this reaction, and when an opponent approaches them from behind, the hungry shadow swipes with their quilled tail.
Oh snap! Is
for
that
this
like a
reaction.
defense from like sneaky ass rogues?
Mm-hmm.
That's nice.
All right, and just to get this out the way now, the tail, it just does damage. The talon, it just does damage. The bite and the wing, however, that's a different story.
What do they do,
Right.
Camden?
In that case, it's a DC 16 grapple save, or you're grappled.
Ooh.
Until the grapple ends, the target is restrained and the hungry shadow can't bite any other targets. Against an opponent grappled in this way, the hungry shadow can make its talon attack with advantage.
And
Wow,
also, just,
that's rough.
and the attacks are +8, reach 10, and 2d10 plus 5.
Yeah, we don't have to get that detailed into it.
That's why I just mentioned it once.
What I think is interesting is that it makes.
Ooh, Skeksis from Dark Crystal, says Tater.
Oh snap! I wonder if that's the inspiration for it. That definitely is spot on. Now that I think about it, I have to go look at a picture. It's been years since I've seen that. So this is interesting. So as part of the attack, if it hits, you're grappled and you're restrained. That is sucky, and it has advantage on its talon attacks. Its dagger-like talons. That's a hell of a grappler. I'd like to point out that I didn't put it in the notes here, but this critter can fly, so it can fly off with your characters.
Hey, Vegeta, I can fly.
What else has it got there, Camden?
As a bonus action, it can use its wing ability, in which it flaps its wings, and any creature that makes a melee weapon attack against it takes a d10 plus 5 slashing damage.
So this kind of reminds me like the big bad villains that are when they're doing something, you've got to avoid them. That's kind of what this reminds me of. So this encourages less melee and more ranged, right?
Well, the fact that it flies kind of does that in the first place too.
Oh, I suppose. I don't know. How do you see getting the most out of this character, Camden?
I would use this. I would, when this thing attacks, you mentioned the fly ability, I would have it approach from the sky, certainly.
Oh yeah, for sure.
That's my only thought with this. With this wing ability, would this be? I'm confused as to exactly how this wing ability. How would you flavor this wing ability?
So the way I envision it is that this thing is flapping so vigorously, and because it has like talons on the ends of its wings, it's constantly like scraping through the air. So trying to get in there in a melee attack is probably very difficult. It's like walking into one of those spinning blade traps, right? Where there's so much going on that just trying to rush in is hazardous to your health. And if your buddy is grappled and can't break the grapple, let's say it grapples like a wizard who has almost no chance of breaking the grapple, are you going to rush into these essentially razor sharp blades that are just cutting freely to save this person? Or you'd be like, well, we need to find a new wizard.
So when it takes that as the bonus action, it's like until its next turn.
That's what I envision.
Okay, yeah, okay, that's where I was confused.
To me, I think it's a defensive mechanism.
Yeah,
because it says it only does damage if any creature that makes a melee attack against it. So it's definitely a
if you go in on
defensive
it,
feature,
right.
which means it's designed to be a fight that you can't just charge in and melee. You have to come up with an alternative combat. And if you've got a group full of people who are normally smash, slash type of thing, they have to rethink their strategies. And I like any sort of monster that makes the players rethink their strategy. What about you, Ian?
Well, like you're saying, anything that forces a change of tactics among the players to think outside the box, that's always a plus in my book.
And I agree. I think he hit the nail on the head. This is a monster that's forcing you to think outside the box and thus change your tactics that would normally probably be something you normally just run in and swing attack and kill. So, though, man, I do just love the idea of it just picking somebody up and flying away. Sarah says it kind of reminds her of the Winged Devourers from the movie Beastmaster. That's a very interesting thing to bring up, considering what our player tip is. But I have not seen Beastmaster, but
I think I saw half the third one.
Oh, I haven't checked it out, but I will probably check that out because I'm interested to see how it matches up. He actually sent me a really nice picture with the whole thing that he actually drew. It was really nice, but I don't know if I'm supposed to share that with anybody. So, anyways, this is a great monster. Now, this isn't a variant of anything. This is a custom monster he built, so our monster variant isn't really our monster variant. It's a monster custom. But it sounds awesome. I'm super excited to give it a shot. Keenan Taylor, thank you so much for your submission. Our encounter of the podcast is the Tavern Hangout. Now, this is pretty simple. You set up a tavern scene so your players kind of can discuss their next quest kind of in character. Instead of just sitting back and letting the players talk, if they do so, sometimes they don't, you can inject a few situations during their conversation that create additional possibilities for the players to really highlight their characters' personalities. I have a few samples here, but there should definitely be more possible outcomes. In the first scenario, during their discussions, an overworked server is being bullied by drunks. What do the characters do? Do they take an honorable approach and intervene? Or is it more of a kind of a careless thing and they're just kind of ignoring it?
Meh.
And is it something they're ignoring because you just mention it in passing and they're not really catching on that it's important? Or are they ignoring it because they don't care? In either way, you're presenting a very small opportunity, and it may lead to a fight and it may not. But the characters have an opportunity to address this issue kind of going on, whether you just mention it in passing or not. Additionally, and it just occurred to me that these also create good opportunities to bring your tavern experience or inexperience to life as well. The next one I have in here is a pickpocket is working the room. The PC spot it. She then offers the characters a small cut. If they keep quiet, do they take it? Of course, the obvious answer is they're greedy, and they take it. Or they take a more honorable approach and they turn her into the appropriate police or make her reveal her what she's doing to everyone in the tavern and let them deal with it. If you guys have anything you want to add to these, feel free to jump in at any moment.
Or they pretend they're in it, but then they pickpocket her.
Oh, that's like uber greedy, dude. I like that. A rogue totally would try to do that, I think. And then the last one I got on here is an abusive town guard try to pick a fight with some newcomers, not the player characters. And how do the characters themselves react? Are they reckless and join in a fight? Are they amenable and they try to negotiate a solution? Or are they careless and they just ignore it, which is kind of always going to be an option? Or are they dishonorable and leave the bar to avoid any conflicts? What do you guys think about these little kind of situations that are just tossed into your kind of meanderings about in a tavern and having to kind of tug and pull at your players?
Sometimes a little small flavor can go a long way. Some good seasoning, if you will.
I think it's super important to have these in your back pocket for when things go stale. You can't always rely on your PCs to be pushing it all the time. So this is awesome to, just push things along if things slow up.
Yeah, and it definitely can add a little bit of interesting opportunity to the characters. Because once again, if they're sitting around and they're kind of talking amongst themselves, I might turn to the person with the highest passive perception and say, hey, as you're, downing your drink, you look over the end of your mug and you see a waiter being bullied, getting slapped on the ass or, something like that. And obviously he dislikes it and is not interested and is trying to swat the hands away, whether it be other guys or girls. how do you react? And I might say that to just one person who has just a high passive perception. You know what I mean? While everyone else is in discussion.
Mm-hmm. B, it makes the world seem more real instead of it's very easy for situations like these when your PCs have downtime in game and they're discussing whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Too often does it happen in a vacuum when there's nothing else going on the outside.
Right.
It's really good to get their attention with something else that may not involve them at all, and seeing, and again, like you said, allowing them to really let their character's personality come out.
Tater has a really great idea. He says you could even slip them a note with what's happening.
Yeah.
If only one person
Absolutely.
notices it.
No card, definitely.
Yeah, for sure.
Whispers.
And now I say the Tavern Hangout, but really you can put this in any setting. If you got 3 players, for instance, and 2 people are in negotiations with something, you could easily just slide this to the third person who's not a part of that conversation for whatever reason. Either they're not present or they're off doing something else, and this is what you spot. How do you handle it while they're going off doing something else? It could be a very good way to include somebody who's not currently engaged in what's actually going on. Which is one of the big hang-ups of D&D is that the DM can't give everyone attention all the time.
Nope.
That'll do it for our encounter of the podcast, the Tavern Hangout. That's actually 3 encounters, by the way. You're welcome. Bonus.
Our next item from the podcast is the Helm of Drowning Intelligence. Wondrous item, uncommon. This makes your intelligence score 20 while you wear this. When you wear this helmet.
I like helmets.
It has no effect on you if your intelligence is already 20 or higher. When this humble wizard's helmet is placed on your head,
Thank you.
a small thundercloud appears above your head. A constant rainfall comes from the cloud and drenches the poor wearer of the hat in a never-ending shower of rain. Ah, brainstorm. Got it. The wearer is also stuck with a constant melancholy as long as the cloud is over his head. You are now intelligent, but you're now Eeyore.
Yeah. That's kind of the point of it.
I think this is a great idea. You could have this would be a great item to like either A, toss at a character that's already kind of like the tortured type, where they're always sad or whatever. This would also be a good thing to give to a character that has quite the opposite personality, is always uppity. Especially if they find this hat and they have no idea what it does, and they put it on and it's like they took too much Xanax.
Yeah, and that's kind of the point. While this gives you a genius level intelligence, it makes you miserable. I mean, if it rained all the time nonstop, now I could see this being used a couple different ways.
Oh, great. Now I'm picturing Marvin from the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
I can see this being used a couple different ways. One is that you give it to a low intelligence character, right? And they boost their intelligence, but now they're always sad. So,
I understand everything now, and everything sucks.
That's kind of where I was going with it.
Yeah.
They're like, this sucks. The rain's not even the problem. The second is if you have a character like the Grung, who has to stay moist regularly. Now he's using it to keep himself from, I don't know what is that. That's not drowning, but drying out or whatever. And now he's smart. He's not drying out, but he's like went from this like happy-go-lucky kind of personality to this
clinically depressed.
Yeah, it's clearly a
Life. Don't talk to me about life.
keeping lubed.
Yeah, you gotta stay squeaky. I don't know where I was going with that. I wonder how you could build mechanics off of it, other than
Like leveraging the rain in some way.
No, like leveraging the emotional effect that it has on the character. So other than your character is now sad all the time. I wonder if you could create a mechanic for it that where they need to make a save or something.
To resist it.
Right.
They could just take it off. Like if they're
there is that, but
they're tired of being depressed. Maybe it's one of those things that they only put it on when they need to conquer a puzzle or something.
I could heal you, but we're all
That's
going to
true.
die anyway, so what's the point?
Oh no, Sam says the character tries to sleep and it's like waterboarding.
That's why you take it off.
Does it through it. It is attuned.
That doesn't mean it goes away.
Right. But like
Or
I
stays
said,
with you.
I could see your character maybe knowing it's cursed and causing this effect that they only put it on when they can't solve a challenge. And that takes a powerful item and makes it a little less desirable, even though it is a good item and has a lot of use. So, like the wizard only busts it out for the truly heinous of villains because he hates being sad. He says, "Oh, I'm gonna kick your ass, but I don't know that I feel like I want to." So
What would I do? Well, I'm all out of ideas, so I say let's all get drunk.
that'll do it for our magic item, the Hat of Drowning Intelligence.
Our Dungeon Master tip we actually pulled from Quest Scribe's Twitter account. If your group travels by cart or horse, consider putting friendly hitchhikers in their path. Meeting fellow travelers on the road makes the world feel more alive. Talking about making the world feel more real, as they can share stories about places they've been or are still planning to go.
Additionally, you could probably use these guys as rumor mills too, which I think is cool.
And if they are exceptionally prepared, they will always have their towel on them.
Yeah, the reason that this really jumped out to me, if I remember right, is that it occurred to me that 90% of the time that I introduce NPCs on the road, they have something to do with the story. I don't think it ever occurred to me just have them run into people that are interesting. Period.
Okay, there can also be used to introduce new players who join the adventure.
Oh, that could work.
Great, now I'm thinking
Yes, that's
about the
good.
gamers.
I haven't seen the gamers.
Okay, guys. Hey, that's my new character being down the path. Okay, guys, as a DM, I just want you to remember the last guys you encountered in this forest were bandits who tried to kill you. Hello, traveler. Who might you be? I am a wizard. What a coincidence. We need a wizard. Oh, may I join you? Yes, you seem perfectly trustworthy.
That literally is how it goes. But this made me think about my own DMing style in that I don't engage NPCs enough during travel that aren't related to the story. Just playing something off the cuff that's interesting to talk to the players about. Let's talk. For instance, we were just talking about the hat of the Hat of Drowning Intelligence. If one of my players had this, I think it'd be great to just put an NPC on the road as like, dude, do you know it's raining on your head? well, what in tarnation is that? It's raining on that poor man's head right now. Hey, sir, could you do me a favor? We've been having a drought for the last few weeks. If you could just walk up and down my fields for a little while, it'd really make me mighty happy, I think something like that is something that I don't do enough as a DM personally. And this kind of brings that to light for me, and hopefully for others.
Sir, your cape's blowing in the wind. Yeah, but there is no wind. And? That's just not natural.
So, once again, coming back to this could be a good way to make, use NPCs to really appreciate some of the stuff that the characters have or are doing out of the norm. You got a wizard that's got like a stupid pseudo-dragon pet. That's not normal. So people should be showing that they run into on the street, the roads should find that interesting and make it a topic of chit-chat, I like this, and I hope that everyone else will take a point from this and try to include more NPCs on the road, even if you stop to say, your cape is billowing in the wind, and there is no wind. Just to make them, remind them that what they are doing and what they're a part of isn't the normal. And it also makes your characters get reactions to stuff like that. So, well, thank you, Camden. That'll do it for our Dungeon Master tip. Thank you to Twitter Quest Scribe. Our final Unearthed Tips and Trick is our player tip of the podcast.
Don't be a dick.
Master the Beast. Players often consider the Beastmaster to be a very weak archetype. Would you guys agree?
Yep.
Arguably, the Beastmaster is the weakest option in the player's handbook.
Yep.
And honestly, for a long time,
Second only to the elemental monk.
I agreed with that. It wasn't until I reevaluated my thoughts on it. Because I read an article where Wizard says they will not release a new Ranger. There is nothing wrong with the current iteration of the Ranger.
I call BS because they released a new update version in Arcana.
Well, they did that because people requested it. That being said,
Everyone requested it.
yes. And so as you can tell, he's very on one side of that as well. So I have spent a lot of time trying to educate myself and reevaluate the current build of the Beastmaster. And I found a few things that I overlooked. Actually, I found a lot of things that I overlooked. And I bet it's a lot of things that other people have overlooked. I want to give a shout out to Dan Dillon. He's one of the writers for D&D Adventures. I don't know if he works for WotC or if it's Kobold Press now, but I found a really good article of his that really opened my eyes, as well as doing my own research and really decided that, you know what, you guys, don't be a dick. The classes may seem weak to you, but it has so much to offer, and we're going to kind of discuss that a little bit. This might be a little more long-winded than our normal player tip, but I think it's worth it. So, first of all, I want to talk about what makes the Beastmaster archetype different from the other archetypes. You get a beast, right? Now, a lot of people think that, well, because you have to forgo your own attack to let your beast attack up until before you get to level 7, that it's weak. It's not useful. And from a raw damage standpoint, it may not, and it does not do as much damage as a hunter with
Jankular?
No, the stupid hunter shot thing. What is that? The arrow. The what?
Hunter's Mark?
Hunter's Mark.
Hunter's mark. Yes, thank you. I say the arrow. That's back to my WoW days where it literally put an arrow over the enemy. So yeah, the damage of the pets will never do that much compared to those. But you have to think about all the other benefits that come with having a pet, even if it's just using your movement or using its movements. First, let's say it's an extra person. It's an extra party member to have. An extra body means what?
Somebody else will take hits.
Somebody else to take hits. So you now have an extra meat shield, right? Is there any arguments there?
Yes.
Okay. You don't think there's a benefit of having an extra meat shield on the field?
I'd say it benefits more at lower levels than mid to high.
I can see that. Okay, what about using its mobility, which doesn't consume your action, to maneuver it to optimize rogue sneak attacks? If you pick the right companion, let's say the Panther, for instance, it has proficiency in stealth. And because you're a Beastmaster, it also adds your proficiency modifier to that, which is already like a 6. So now you can have your pet traveling with the rogue for its sneak attacks, granting it advantage. Right?
Yeah.
Helping it get the sneak attack off. So those are the two simplest advantages I can see by that. Do you guys think that there's any negative there? Or are those not accurate?
Those seem correct.
The biggest, those are awesome. I totally agree with all of that. The biggest drawback for me to the Beastmaster is the stealth checks and making the extra checks if you're trying to be sneaky or fit into a smaller space, having that extra body with you. But like you said, taking a beast that is stealthy and maybe smaller and better suited for that. I didn't think about, all the possibilities that you have for your pet.
Right. So at level when you pick this character up at level 3, its stealth for a Panther specifically is a 6. So plus your proficiency modifiers too. So it has a +8 to stealth. So it probably isn't going to be the weakness. It'll probably be you, since you're not a rogue. But anyways, that's nor here nor there. So let's talk about the other things. The big thing that comes into play is utility. Everyone always wants to consider damage as the measurement and the metric that they use to determine a character's usefulness. Well,
they do other things.
Yes, and that's actually where I think the Beastmaster shines, is not in its damage, because you're right, it's subpar compared to everything else. So we're going to look at the utility involved. How about the fact that it can grant advantage to other PCs in several different ways?
Assist.
The help action being one, right?
Yep.
If you're a wolf, pack tactics. As long as somebody is next to it, right?
Yep.
It gets advantage. So it may not hit as hard as your ranger self, but it can grant advantage, increasing its chance to succeed, especially in a heavily armored opponent. So you might do less damage, but a hit for a little damage will outweigh a miss every time.
Yep.
How about this when enemies are hidden behind cover? Total cover either. You can send your pet to reach areas where you can't see. If they're hiding behind rocks or wagons or, trees and stuff like that. You can't always get line of sight. So sending a sneaky Panther to ambush the target and maybe grapple and drag him out so you can shoot him are huge benefits there. What about the creatures that can, maybe some of the creatures that can fly, or, you know, the panther or wolf that can climb up areas without risk of losing, you know, if you lose your pet, you can always kind of replace it. If you fall from a high height trying to reach somebody, it's going to be a problem. So what if you send them up to climb up a lookout and drag somebody out of there? How about using it for intimidation? I was incorrect on that. But anyways, it doesn't change the fact that if you try to intimidate me and
Assist.
you have...
It can assist.
Yeah, it can take the help action to grant you advantage, right? And not just the intimidation, that's the one that comes specifically, but all the perception checks too, checking for traps. It's another tool to check for traps and ambushes. What about using it as a form to grapple and pinning them to the ground so that all your allies get advantage?
Yep.
Once again, you're not increasing your damage, but your output is going up because you're increasing everybody else's. The big one that comes to mind is if you're a small race. You can now use this creature as a mount. If you're a small halfling or a gnome, and you use this creature as a mount, let's say the wolf, for instance. The wolf's pack tactics become super critical. The wolf pack tactic says the wolf has advantage on attack rolls against a creature if it has at least one ally within 5 feet. It always has advantage, every attack. So once again, the damage might be a little lower, but it scales with your proficiency bonus, right? So you're adding the increase the minimum and the maximum the damage can do. So once again, might not be quite as high as your raw weapon damage, but an insured hit often can outweigh raw damage and can be used to offset disadvantage situations. Because just because you have disadvantage on a shot because you're blinded doesn't mean your pet does. The point I'm trying to make is that while everyone considers this offhanded or considers the Beastmaster a weak archetype, the utility that it brings is amazing. Now, from a raw damage standpoint, probably not. But to me, it's a very powerful support class. Let's talk about when you get the extra attack. You can forgo one attack to let your pet, use its actions to do whatever, including taking the help action. So if I forgo one of my extra attacks with my bow to grant the rogue advantage on his attacks, I will never outdamage the rogue. But if I can ensure the rogue is going to hit way more often, that overall increases the entire group's damage in an entire round by a lot. Another great thing about it is because you're granting the help, you can use it to ensure that you can bring down higher AC targets as well. Because while you can still attack and take out foes, you can still once again share that advantage with an ally. The other thing is taking spells that enhance your beast, not just yourself. This was the mistake I did. When I first played my Beastmaster Ranger, all the spells I took were about boosting up me or healing people, right? Mm-hmm. And that was it. And I ignored several different advantages that come with that. The two examples that I came to mind right away is Fog Cloud. Fog Cloud can obscure areas. Many beasts have bonuses to their perception checks. And of course, now you're adding your proficiency bonus on top of it. So while it may dim your sight, a wolf doesn't need sight to be able to find its target. It can smell it out. In fact, I think it grants advantage when it's using its perception skill checks with keen hearing and smell. So now, not only does it have a bonus to its perception, it also has advantage. So that fog that's used to debilitate your enemies is no longer a debilitating effect to you because you have other options available to you with your minions or your pets. The other thing that came to mind that I thought was awesome was Stone Skin, which basically can give you a target resistance. If you cast this onto your pet, you essentially double their effective HP.
Or on large creature, or giant strength, or whatever.
Are those on the Ranger spell list though? I'm not sure.
I'm not sure up to mine either.
Okay. But in any case, that still applies. Being able to essentially give your minion Barbarian's Rage makes it that much stronger. And then the last thing that I think is super important is you are not limited, unless your DM tells you otherwise, to what's in the back of the player's handbook. The The feature doesn't say anything about being a limitation to the player's handbook. It just says there are some examples in Appendix D. That means you should have access to, and especially talking with your DM, that you should have access to monsters that are 1/4 within the DMG or Volos, which gives you even a larger range of options.
And Mordecai just came out too, so...
Yeah, and Mordekainen's. So those are things to consider. Now that I've got all that I wanted to say out, now I'd like to open I want to get all that out of there before I went to an open discussion, because I see Sam is posting a bunch of stuff.
Yep.
You've had a few people consider leaving their companions behind. Then I'm going to challenge you as a DM to make them more involved with their companion. If you're bringing their companion to life, and I want to use Critical Role as an example, Vexalia's trinket is not just a companion to be replaced when it dies. It is an integral part of her character and her personality. If you're a Beastmaster, it should be no different. And it's up to the DM to play that part, right? So to me, the Beastmaster has so much utility to it. Yes, it's not the best damage, but there's so much you can do with it. And the bond that you can form with your minion, with your beast, should be part of that character development that no other class can get, which makes your character that more interesting from a roleplay aspect as well as a combat aspect. The other thing to consider is, could you train? Now, I don't know the extent of this, but could you train your pet to follow a command from another person? Like a rogue. If you take my panther with you, this is the command to get him to attack. Giving you another resource that you, as the ranger, probably can't follow. So Sam also asked, what happens when you need somewhere to go where the bear cannot follow? That is a challenge that is always going to be there for the player character just as much as the bear, right?
Bears can't climb ladders.
No, but your team can figure that stuff out. Just because it adds a challenge to the game doesn't mean that it makes that a less desirable option. Well, the Dragonborn can't fit through the Siney Tunnel, so maybe the Halfling should leave him behind, you know?
That's come up before.
I think you nailed all of it. I don't think there's much to add due to the nature of the long-windedness of this player tip in particular. That's very much okay. The only thing I have to add is just calling back to wrap things up, is if WotC is coming forward and saying, y'all a bunch of bitches, the ranger is fine, then just take it for what it's worth. They wrote the fucking book, so chill out.
Although, inversely, they could just be being stubborn.
I don't know, man. Their whole spiel for 5e is balance in what the players want. So that seems more unlikely than others.
As some of the comments I've heard from the playtests, some players want some really strange things.
Yeah, fair enough. Sam says, yeah, I can find other... Because I just find other players resent the Beastmaster for continuously making it come up.
Yeah. Well, I'm just saying from the different aspect of, like, I definitely had to deal with some people in the playtest, especially some older gamers. Back in my day in the older editions, the wizards were way more powerful than the fighters at higher levels, and we liked it that way.
Yeah, but that's because old people are grumpy. Take Tate for an example.
Yeah, unfortunately, they're also the ones who gave wizards feedback.
Yeah, it's true. I don't know. Anyways, this is something that I for a long time I agreed with, and I've recently revisited it. And the next character I get an opportunity to play will be a Beastmaster, because I want to try this, and I want to form a bond with it. Anybody that's watched my streams with like Salt and Sassy, I have a very close bond with Alabama. I included him in everything I did, and I got more use out of him than any of my magic spells. And that was one thing that kind of led to this. So, all right. I do apologize for that long-winded player tip. I know that it was more detailed than most. Probably needed its own movie topic, but
I said that could have been its own segment.
Yeah. Closing that out, that is our player tip of the podcast. Don't be a dick. And you can avoid dickitude by mastering your beast. He's a sentient being. Learn to love him or her. And plus, I'm reading Aragon, and having an animal companion has such awesome benefits.
Yeah, but,
sure, he's got a dragon.
But
but it's the personality that comes, the connection between them, the two, that makes it interesting. That'll do it for Honor Tips and Tricks. Before we close out the show, we have one more gift to give away. Compliments of Jeff Stevens.
It's been a long few days of travel, and the adventurers are tired of eating rations and sleeping on the ground. The road opens to a small town with an inviting tavern. The smells of grilling meat and ale fill their nostrils, and the sound of laughter and music float out the tavern's door. Unlucky for the adventurers, they've stumbled upon Dragon's Breath Tavern. What starts out as a pleasant evening of food, drink, and entertainment soon evolves into an adventure that takes the party into and under Dragon's Breath Tavern. The adventure includes roleplay, exploration, combat, and a dice game called Demon Dice.
Camden, who's our winner today?
Our winner today of Dragon's Breath Tavern by Jeff Stevens is Homan.s.
When it comes crashing down and it hurts inside, you gotta take a stand, it don't hurt.
Congratulations, Homans.s. If you enjoy the adventure, please let Jeff Stevens know. Leave him a review. Let him know what you like, what you didn't like. And check out all his... and tell him Crit Academy sent you. If you don't know, Jeff Stevens has a really awesome freebie adventure in our... Damn, what is the name of it? In our Crit Nation tab on our website, you can click his link. He's got some freebies. I recommend checking them out. You can get a little bit of taste. That is Jeff Stevens. Same thing with Goblin Stone. He's got a good one, too.
Yep.
Please join us for our next episode where we'll hear feedback from you, our heroes. We will be discussing the Unearthed Arcana 3 classes martial archetype, the Brute.
Experience his pugilistic prowess.
If you have any feedback, unearthed tips and or tricks, or topics you'd like us to discuss, please send them to us via email at critacademy@gmail.com or over Twitter or Facebook at Crit Academy.
We hope you've enjoyed your experience here at Crit Academy. If you did, you can help others find the show by leaving a, hopefully, 5-star review on iTunes or your platform of choice, or send us a message telling us how much you enjoy the show.
Also, be sure to give us a like and a share. Make sure to subscribe to our show at critacademy.com so we can help you on your future adventures, as well as be entered to win cool prizes each and every week. You will find links to our fellowship members there as well. If you do not know, our fellowship is a collection of content creators that are all revolved around D&D. The two podcasts on that Crit Nation are Inner Party Conflict with Jeff and Gabe. Their entire show is similar to our Let's Talk About Blank segment, where they answer your questions to make sure you have the best tabletop experience possible. Gabe actually just released an awesome podcast on arcade cabinets and your experiences back in the arcades, which I thought was really cool. It's very nice. Check that out. And then, of course, you have D&D Character Lab, where they build very creative characters and argue their validity in game with a really cool, unique gauging metric that they came up with that's just silly. They are awesome, and I highly recommend them, as well as you'll find our sponsorships and groups like Game Master Stash, links to Game Master Stash, and Oricon's Lair as well. Lots of goodies.
Our patron Sam Bridge wanted to give a shout out to an audiobook that you can find on Audible using our link on our website, critacademy.com. If you are looking for something to get with your free book, our patron Sam Bridge, a loyal patron of ours, a good guy, recommends NPCs, which is a particularly good audiobook. If you want to listen to hours on end of more Dungeons and Dragons related material.
As if listening to us isn't enough.
Right.
Get your nerdy on.
Yeah, talking about that made me think of the short story, The Gods of Every Other Wednesday. The general premise is what the player characters are doing when they're not being controlled by the players.
Oh, that's cool.
Yes, NPCs by Drew Hayes, Hayes.
If you have not used it, you can head on to Crit Academy and click our Audible link and get it for free. If you have not done so already.
Critacademy.com.
What did I say?
You just said our website. I was just giving the URL.
Oh.
Repetition. Gotcha.
Okay.
Sunday. Yeah, I get it. I am your host, Justin.
I'm your co-host, Ian.
And I am your co-host, Camden. Thanks for listening.
Keep your blades sharp and spells prepared, heroes.